All aboard. Hi, I'm Rob Kelly, host of Fade Out, Citizen Kane Minute, the Film and Water Podcast, and other shows here on the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Do you like to ride on trains? I do, and I've taken a fun few trips across this country just watching the scenery go by out the window. Luckily for me, nothing horrible has ever happened on any of these jaunts, but that's not something that can be said about the passengers of 1974's Murder on the Orient Express.
We hear the phrase, they don't make them like that anymore, a lot nowadays. But boy, is it appropriate when talking about Sidney Lumet's Murder on the Orient Express. Legend has it that Agatha Christie, the best-selling author of all time, had grown tired of the less-than-stellar adaptations of her books and had pretty much decided to stop selling the rights to Hollywood. As luck would have it, one of the film's producers was related to Lord Mountbatten, an old friend of Christie's, so they got him to cajole her into agreeing to sell the rights to her most famous novel. You can see why the producers were so bullish on this movie. They had one of the greatest directors of all time, Sidney Lumet, on board. Lumet managed to assemble a truly all-star international cast. Sean Connery, Lauren Bacall, Anthony Perkins, John Gielgud, Martin Balsam, Jacqueline Bisset, Ingrid Bergman, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Wendy Hiller, Vanessa Redgrave, Rachel Roberts, Michael York, Richard Widmark, and, as Hercule Poirot, the great Albert Finney. Finney's performance, his only time as the legendary detective, is a riot. His Poirot is a very odd guy, eyes darting back and forth, crab walking down the Orient Express's claustrophobic passageways. It's high comedy in the middle of a murder mystery. Martin Balsam is also very funny here. It's Poirot's old friend and conductor of the line, who's convinced, after every suspect's interrogation, they did it. The score by Richard Rodney Bennett is outstanding, especially during a genuinely frightening opening sequence that shows us the crime that kicks off the story. The screenplay by Paul Dean, the man who wrote 4 of the 5 original Planet of the Apes films, keeps things moving at a brisk pace, and Lumet is at the top of his game directing this cavalcade of stars. He was asked once how he landed all these renowned actors, and he said his strategy was to nail down the biggest star, who at the time was Connery, and the rest would follow. He was right. Years later, when asked about this movie, many of the cast would say they did it just to work with the other actors. Ingrid Bergman went on to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role here, one of the film's 6 nominations. Bergman's win was basically the result of just one scene, where she talks for 5 minutes in one uninterrupted take. On a personal note, I also enjoy seeing the character actor George Coulouris, Mr. Thatcher from Citizen Kane, show up here as a slightly daffy doctor. Agatha Christie attended the film's world premiere, her last public appearance before passing away less than a year later. She would go on to say it was her favorite film adaptation of all her books. There was supposedly brief talk about Finney returning to the role, but that never panned out. Probably for the best, since they could have never topped this. Murder on the Orient Express is pure Hollywood fun told with wit and style. If you haven't seen it, get yourself a ticket.